Hi, I'm Judy Fleming, Director of Healthier Diet Canada, and we're here in the winter time at our store, and I want to talk today about emergency creations. Sometimes we can't get out to get our groceries, and because we eat mostly raw food, 85% raw, and we all know that raw food usually lasts for 3 to 4 days, well, we have a problem if we can't get out. Last week at our Waterloo store, we had 3 days in a row that it was windy and blowing and snow coming down and the roads were closed. So I actually couldn't get out and get any groceries, and we finally got to the point that I had to look in my cupboard, my pantry and my fridge and my freezer and see, well, what do we have left to eat? And I came up with a really wonderful creation that you can see at the end of the video. So what did I have in my pantry? Well, we need to make sure we have our pantry stocked and our fridge and our freezer stocked. So we have all the different vegetables, and we eat a lot of greens, and usually I buy romaine lettuce or spinach, and they're great, but the problem is they don't last long, for 2, 3, 4 days at the tops. But I have found that kale, and we grew a lot of kale this summer, and it was still growing at Christmas time, and we can take the kale and use it, and it lasts a lot longer. So during the winter time, I buy as much kale as I can because I know it's going to last me more than just 2 or 3 days. It's going to last 4 or 5 days. And we get it all washed up and ready, and now we can make our green salads with, oh, we have some purple kale here. So we've got that as a wonderful substitute. Cabbage is another one, because you can buy cabbage and keep it in your cold cellar or the bottom drawer of your fridge, and it works really, really well as part of your salads instead of your romaine lettuce and that. Then we have all of our root vegetables, our carrots and parsnip and beets, and our onions and our potatoes and our little mini turnips, and we have squash, and we have our sweet potatoes, and we have something like an jicama, and I'll show you how we're going to use that a little bit later. These things will stay in your fridge for longer periods of time, so they're things that we like to use over the winter because they're not going to spoil as quickly as our summer vegetables do. And then we've got the option of frozen, and we've got some wonderful organic corn, and I like the fact that I can buy organic corn instead of the corn that we normally get at the grocery store during the summertime. And we've got some frozen organic raspberries, and then we've got our other fruits, some our peaches and plums. Well, they don't last long, but our oranges and grapefruit and lemons, they do last longer. And then of course we've got our apples. Well, they last for quite a while, and of course some organic ginger as well. So we want to stock our fridge and pantry during the winter months with these things, and these things are available all winter long, straight through the winter. So it makes it really good options for us. And we have some frozen peas, and then we've got our garlic, and so that's our raw foods. And then we've got our nuts and our seeds. Right now I'm actually soaking some of our nuts because I'm going to make a seed cheese. And this is what I did the other day when we had nothing left in our main part of our fridge except for a handful of limp-looking spinach. So I put it in my cold water for a while, and it came to life a little bit, and I was able to chop it up and use it as my greens, and then I worked around that. And we have our nuts, and we've got some walnuts and pecans and almonds. We can have all your nuts and your seeds, your sunflower seeds, your pumpkin seeds. We can keep them in our glass jars in our fridge, and they're ready for us to make some kind of a seed cheese or some kind of a pecan loaf, or our substitutes for our meats. And we can use them all the time, all winter long, and there's not a problem. We have our coconut oil, all of our organic spices, and our sea salt. These are things you have in your cupboard, your pantry, all the time. And last summer we grew mint, and we have some wonderful dried mint that we have. And I've also got in my cupboard back in Waterloo some basil and sage and oregano and thyme, the herbs that I grew all summer long. So I dehydrated them, and then I've put them in glass jars, and they're sitting in my fridge ready for me to season up my foods this year during the winter. I have some nutritional yeast. I've got my garlic, it's starting to sprout, but it's still good garlic. We've got our beans and our lentils and our chickpeas or garbanzo beans. And of course we always have our survival bars, and we've got them in different flavors, and this certainly comes in handy all year long, but especially during the winter when you're out for skiing or hiking or just going grocery shopping and you want to eat something before you go into the grocery store so you're not hungry while you're doing your grocery shopping. And then we've got over here, I've got my apple cider vinegar, and we've always got an extra jar of that in the cupboard. We've got our maple syrup, and then we've got some good organic beans, tomato sauce, tomato paste, diced tomatoes. These are all things that help to make up some food that maybe isn't raw anymore, but it's definitely going to be healthy food for your cooked portion of the diet. And we've got some organic rice pasta, and we've got some organic rice. We got organic crackers, gluten-free you can buy, or your multi-grain crackers. Organic Mexican salsa, and we can add things to that because it's kind of hard to keep a tomato fresh and ready to go. But we can use our diced tomatoes and them and have a substitute. It's not totally raw, but we're going to eat as much raw as possible in our smoothies and whatever, but this is a great way to make things last over the winter. And then of course I always take my ripe bananas, and I buy my ripe bananas for usually 29 cents a pound, and I peel them and I put them in my freezer, and they're in my freezer now so that I'll be able to make smoothies even if I can't get fresh bananas. Or let's say you go to the grocery store and all the bananas are a bright green. Well, obviously they're no good that day. It's going to take some time for them to ripen up. So I've got the ones in my freezer that I can use in my smoothies. And I've also got here some of our tortilla, multi-grain tortilla wraps. These particular ones are multi-grain, so they've got many different grains in. They're not gluten-free. But I do have, when I make my flax tortilla wraps or flax crackers, I make them in rounds about this size and a little bit smaller, and I make lots of them so I can stack them in my fridge. And they came in handy because I used the last 5 I had in my fridge last week when I couldn't get out to the grocery store or didn't have the time to be making fresh. So we've got all kinds of wonderful things here, and now I'm going to put together a couple of recipes for you. We're going to make a wonderful soup or stew, and then we're going to make something with some of the other food to make an interesting looking salad, tortilla tower, I guess we could say. And then of course we have our juicing, that if I can't get enough raw because I can't get out to the grocery store, well then I take out more of my barley max and my beet max and my carrot max, and I eat them, or drink them I mean. I drink them as my juice, and maybe I'll do 6 or 8 juices that day because I can't eat raw food because I've run out of it and I can't get out to the grocery store. And then of course I've got my superfood, which is wonderful. It's got the greens in it, so it's a good substitute for all my leafy vegetables that I had all summer long. Well, now I've still got them, but they're in a different form, and I can add them to my smoothies. And I've got my frozen fruit in the freezer, my frozen bananas, so I can continue doing juicing, I continue doing my green smoothies, and have a lot of raw in my diet. And then I make my soups and my stews and work around it with whatever I have left in my pantry. So the secret is to do pantry planning. Plan what you have and what you don't have, and make sure you get out to the grocery store when you can get out, and you've got your pantry and your fridge stocked with all these wonderful things that don't spoil in 2-3 days. Okay, so what we made for tonight's dinner is we're making our baked cooked food first because it takes a little bit longer. And I always find that if I make it up before I start making my salad, by the time I finish making my salad and eat my salad, then my cooked food is ready. So it makes it really time efficient. So what we have here is we have our different root vegetables, and we can either do them in the oven with some water, and we put some coconut oil in there. We've added some onion, and we've added some seasoning, some sea salt. And we're going to add a little bit of herbs to it as well. And just stir that up. And then we're going to cover this, and we're going to put it in our oven for 45 minutes. Now the other way you can make it, if you don't have an oven or you don't want to turn the oven on or whatever, is we can do it in a little saucepan, and it's the same stuff. And we have in here carrots and turnip and onion, potatoes, parsnips, I think that's pretty well everything we put in, from what I can remember. And we've got a really nice root vegetable bake, we can call it. And it's going to be a wonderful cooked part of our meal. So I'll get that all put away, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about what we're going to do as our main raw part of our meal. Okay, so we're back now, and we're going to make our tortilla tower, we'll call it, our Mexican tortilla tower. And as I said before, I made this using raw flax tortilla wraps, but today we're just going to use some multi-grain ones that we bought at the grocery store that were in the freezer, because after all, this is our emergency rations. And we've got our salsa, and normally I would make a raw salsa, but I always like to have a jar of organic salsa on hand, because you never know when you're going to have to make something up quickly because company comes, or you have a snow emergency. And living in Canada, we all know what snow emergencies are all about. So I've got my salsa, but of course it's not going to be enough to serve the 4 people in our Hallelujah Diet family here. So we are going to add some wonderful organic diced tomatoes to that, just to make it so that it will spread and feed more people. So this is a little trick you can do to, and it also takes a really spicy salsa and makes it a little bit milder if you've got people that really don't want something spicy. So I think we got enough there with that. And we can use our canned diced tomatoes in our soup tomorrow and have a tomato cabbage soup or something like that. And I think you might see me making that sometime in the future. Okay. And then we made our seed cheese, and our seed cheese, we used our seeds, of course, to start, or our nuts. I like to call this a nut pate if I make it with nuts, and I call it a seed cheese if I make it with seeds. But basically it's the same thing. And we used our nuts and onion, and we added some seasoning. And we used Mexican style seasoning. We added a little bit of the salsa to it. We added some of the corn to it. And we added some carrots and a little bit of our kale. So this is a really good, it could also be made into a wonderful pecan loaf. It's not pecans, but a seed cheese loaf. So there's many different things we can do with this. And unless you have a power failure, you can do your dehydrating with this as well and have some wonderful food that's still raw. So we're going to take this and we're going to layer it using our tortilla shells and all the different foods and put it together. So we have a little bit of lettuce, not much left in our fridge on our emergency snow day. So we're going to take that and start with that. And you can layer it any way you want. Then I'm going to take my tomato salsa and put that over top, or you could have put this on first, whichever way you want to do it. And since this is Mexican, if you had some organic beans, you could add the beans too to it. Okay, then we're going to take another wrap, put it on, press it down slightly, and now we're going to add our nut pate, because we did this with almonds, so it's a nut pate. It's a Mexican nut pate because we added some Mexican spice to it, and it's totally raw, so we're having a nice raw meal here. And we want to make enough so that this is going to be a tower that we can have this and share this with other people. And we're going to put some more of our lettuce. And we didn't have much lettuce left, but we had enough to make 2 layers of it, so that's really good. And then we got some frozen peas that we thawed, and we're going to sprinkle them on top. And we'll take another layer. Okay, pat it down slightly. And we're going to put our salsa on first this time, just for a bit of variety. You don't want to make this up too far in advance because the salsa will obviously soak through your tortilla shells, especially if they're raw. They soak through, and you don't want to make it too far in advance. But okay, and we're going to add our corn. And you don't need to keep it on the tower. It can be around the plate to make it look as beautiful as possible. We'll put the last little bit of our stuff here. what the heck? We got enough. We can make a third or fourth layer. Okay, so I'm going to pile this on. There are always 4 of us, so that's a wrap each. And this time we're going to put more of this on. And what I did when we had our emergency day, the following day was still terrible, so we actually made this into a dehydrated, we did it with pecans, so it was a pecan loaf, and we had leftover raw cranberry sauce in the freezer, and we had our Christmas dinner all over again, without some of the trimmings, of course. And we're going to add some more corn to this, use up what we have. And of course our peas. It's amazing how all this adds a wonderful flavor, just wonderful flavors. We'll top it with the leftovers. We have a really nice, beautiful looking, I call it my Mexican Tortilla Tower. Isn't that gorgeous? And then we've got a meal made from leftovers, from things that were just in our pantry. Meanwhile, our root vegetable is cooking away. We've got one in the oven, and the one in the oven is at about 375 for 40 minutes or so. It cooks a lot faster if you're using it on your stove top. And then we're going to strain the water off and put it together with all of our wonderful herbs and have a wonderful cooked part as well. And we just have one more salad we're going to make, and I'll be back in a second to make that for you. Okay, so here we are making our final recipe today, and it's our leftover salad stuff. So we had some kale. We're going to put the kale, and we have a little tiny bit of lettuce in there too. So we have our kale. And then we've got some jicama. That was the jicama. Remember the jicama? Okay? Well, we cut it up and we cut it into 4. And we took a quarter of it. We made 2 flat ends. And we put it through our spiruli. And here we have some wonderful spiral cut jicama, which is a root vegetable. And it comes from Central America, the Mexican area. So actually, we're going with our Mexican theme here. We're going to add some of our peas, just for a variety of color. And we have here some hemp seeds, a nice dark hemp seed, and this will add some good protein to the salad as well. And if you're cutting your jicama and you don't have a spiral cutter, then you can just cut it into julienne strips, and it works just as well that way. And we made one of our salad dressings using our little personal blender, and we're going to toss that. Because it's kale, I can toss it just before I want to serve it, and I could even keep this to the next day if I wanted to. And we've got a really nice emergency salad. It doesn't have a lot in it, but it's got everything raw, and it's a really nice option for our winter months, the kale. And isn't that a beautiful salad? Okay, so our meal is ready, and as soon as we have it plated, we'll give you a look as to what it looks like, and then you can also make yourself some wonderful emergency creations as a result of just looking through your kitchen and your pantry and using what you have on hand. And we managed for 3 days to eat and had a wonderful meal, mostly raw, a little bit more cooked than normal maybe, but we were still probably 75% raw. Just from what I had in my root vegetables and my fruits. And one of the videos that we'll do in the future will make you a wonderful salad made with the fruits, and have something a little bit different for dessert maybe. So thank you again for coming and watching us as we talked about our emergency snow creations, and we get through our winter here in Canada by using our imagination.